For your ears only for the week of August 21st, my birthday actually, I'm David Alpern.
I'm Eddie Robinson.
I think the problem is the U.S. because we are still the world's largest economy, and we have no leadership, no economic leadership.
The closing bell at the New York Stock Exchange last Thursday brought a sigh of relief to many, if only because it finally ended another nosedive by the Dow Jones Industrial Average, 419 points. Much of the blame fell on continuing weakness in the Eurozone and its bailout-needy banks, but Seaport Securities President Teddy Weisberg focused closer to home for the AP with a new set of depressing economic reports and major questions about what steps might be taken by the Federal Reserve and a congressional supercommittee assigned to find more than $1 trillion of additional deficit reduction as part of the bitter battle over raising the nation's debt ceiling to avoid a potentially crippling default.
As it was, the deal did not prevent the first-ever U.S. credit downgrade by Standard & Poor's, though it did not halt the world's purchase of Treasury debt or raise the rates Washington has to pay. But even some positive signs from Wall Street at the end of last week did not erase the fear of more wild roller coaster days. To consider the causes of the market's not-so-merry-go-round and the prospects for stability on the street and the nation's larger economy, we're joined again by David Gordon, Chief of Research at Eurasia Group, International Risk Consultants. Welcome back to our program.
Great to be here. Happy birthday, David.
Thank you.
Let's start with that downgrade by Standard & Poor's, which is itself now under federal investigation for far too favorable ratings in the mortgage-backed securities boom that led to the worldwide credit crunch. Could S&P have been taking revenge for a probe they must have had at least suspected, even if the public didn't?
Yeah, I mean, some conspiracy theorists are out there doing it. Actually, I think it drew more attention to themselves to do it this way. If they were really out to protect themselves, I think they would have dropped the whole thing. But months ago, they started saying that if the U.S. doesn't really get a lot of deficit reduction done really fast, they were going to downgrade, and they kept their word in some sense.
Beyond doing no significant harm to U.S. borrowing, did the downgrade actually do the administration at least a small favor by putting blame on Republican obstinacy to revenue increases?
Yeah, I think that over the medium term, the president can go back to that in the campaign in a way that may potentially help him. But the president didn't show great leadership during this whole thing, so he's yet to have taken that advantage, but he still may.
To the degree that political process is being judged as a key factor in solving the deficit problem and promoting economic recovery, how do you see the new congressional supercommittee's ability to reach an acceptable compromise on more spending cuts and revenues?
So I don't think we're going to get very far on revenues, but I do think there's, 300, more than that, probably $500 billion out there of deficit reduction issues, recalibrating the consumer price index, shifting some of the way that federal pensions are determined. The committee is likely to get to. But the important point here is that the committee isn't going to come up with a plan that puts us onto a medium-term trajectory for really getting a handle on our fiscal challenges. That will have to wait until after the 2012 election.
You don't see much pressure on the process from an op-ed by mega investor Warren Buffett that argued for higher taxes on the super-rich like himself?
No, I think that the issue isn't really taxes for the super-rich. It's a much tougher issue of taxes for people in 250 up to $1 million. And I don't think the Republicans ever argue explicitly defending low taxes on the super rich. They argue that it's really small business people who need to have their tax burdens lowered. So I don't see this having a big impact on the debate, frankly.
Let's go back to the market swings, based more on the flagging U.S. economic recovery or the fear of contagion from the Eurozone.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I do think that it's primarily a fear of contagion from the Eurozone, but that fear of contagion is driven by the fact that the U.S. economy is flagging, that the U.S. recovery isn't anything what people hoped it was going to be 6 or 8 months ago. And so I do think the real risk of a double-dip recession is that the Eurozone trajectory goes into something much worse than what we're seeing now, and this blows back on us, just like the U.S. financial crisis in 2008 blew back on Europe and the rest of the world.
Did Federal Reserve Chairman Ben Bernanke say too much or too little when he promised to hold a rock-bottom interest rate into 2013 and keep an open mind on more buying of Treasury debt to stimulate the economy?
Yeah, I think Bernanke got it just about right. I think he had to say something to try to calm the markets, and I think the promise to hold interest rates low until 2013 had that marginal impact. But as long as the U.S. economy still doesn't show itself going into a recession, he doesn't want to his last bullet to fire in his gun is buying more Treasury debt to stimulate the economy. He doesn't want to do that too soon. So I think he played it just right.
What did you make of the German-French plan for greater coordination of Eurozone economies, tax practices, and balanced budgets?
I just don't think anybody believes any of these things are going to happen in anything like a timely fashion. So I think that the markets have really lost faith in the political processes in Europe, and in particular in both French President Sarkozy and German Chancellor Merkel. They really don't have any credibility, and I think that's the main thing we're seeing this week.
What about China? Vice President Biden is there now talking up the security of buying into the U.S. economy. The Chinese are saying they're pretty stable. Are they basically too bought into our system to really damage it by pulling out?
I think they're way too bought in. If China started to pull out, they would basically really create a huge hit on the rest of their holdings, and they would bring down the economies of the United States and Europe, on which they totally depend for their export-based economy. So the Chinese are frustrated, but they're frustrated because they really have no choice.
Back to domestic politics. It's conventional wisdom that the economy determines the presidency, especially when an incumbent seeks re-election. But elections are also a choice between alternatives, and some think Obama may be helped if the GOP nominee seems too ideological or too inexperienced for independents and swing voters. What's your view?
I believe that while the president didn't show great leadership in the debt limit debate, that he actually articulated a viewpoint that is going to serve him well in the election. He can argue that he was the one who went out there looking for the mega deal, that he was the one who wanted to do mostly spending cuts, but everybody recognizes to get to these big numbers you have to have some revenue enhancement, and that it was the Republicans who basically vetoed all of this by their ideological commitment to do nothing on the revenue side. I think that message is going to be very attractive to independent and swing voters.
David Gordon is Chief of Research at Eurasia Group, International Risk Consultants.
Quote from the news, "Stop ripping families apart." That was one of the signs at a Los Angeles demonstration by 200 immigrants and supporters protesting the Federal Secure Communities Act that has led to deporting longtime residents, victims of domestic violence, and young people brought to the U.S. as children. The administration later announced suspension of proceedings against those not actually a threat to national security or safety.
Next, more on Obama and the Republicans for your ears only.